I get a chee-hoo?
Today we're returning to Motunui and ranking Moana 2 characters from good to evil. Spoilers ahead. And as usual, we'll be starting with the most noble and pure friends of the ocean, and working our way down to the most evil. These characters are the good. Moana is one of those franchises where most of the characters are some level of heroic, but we're giving the gold medal of good to her adorable pet pig, Pua. Put simply, Pua is basically a pig with the brain of a puppy. Sure, he's a bit of a scaredy cat at times, which, now that I think about it, is a really common trend among pigs in Disney movies. But if you're willing to look past that, you've got a little guy who's always willing to help Moana on her adventures despite having nowhere near the size or strength of her usual crew. In the final act, he even helps rescue Maui after he's struck by lightning. And that's not even mentioning how many jokes Maui's made about eating Pua.
Boat snack upgrade? Bacon and eggs?
Honestly, this pig is a legend, and we say that he's definitely earned the gold medal of good, and the right to be the next Moana character to achieve demi-godhood. Next up on our podium, the silver medal of good has to go to the main non-princess herself, Moana. Really, everything good we can say about Moana in the first movie can be applied to her role in the sequel as well. Moana is courageous, kind-hearted, and self-sacrificial, more than happy to risk her neck to improve the lives of the people she loves. When it's discovered that her world was divided long ago by a curse that can only be undone by reaching the islands of Matafitu, Moana braves intense seas and storms to help her people, even knowing she may not return and that she's leaving everything she loves behind for a while. That is serious commitment, and it's a characteristic that carries through the rest of her adventure as well. Despite the various bumps on the journey, she keeps her head as high as she can to bring her people together, from keeping up the crew's morale all throughout the journey to teaming up with coconut pirates out of necessity.
Bring it on, nuts!
Even down to temporarily drowning to break the curse of Matafitu. Moana has no shortage of heroic deeds that earned her even more brownie points this time around. She proved herself worthy of demigoddess status, even if her tattoos aren't quite as cool as Maui's. Rounding out our podium, our bronze medal of good has to go to Moana's little sister, Samia. Much like Moana at her age, Samia is excitable about all things ocean, but mostly about her big sis. Being presumably a toddler, there's obviously not much bad to say about her, hence her high ranking. On top of that, she's also very brave for her age. She was initially determined to stow away in Moana's boat, so she wouldn't have to be separated, and even gave her a miniature star to keep a piece of home with her. She's a good kid, and there's no doubt she'll make a great addition to Moana's crew once she's a bit bigger. Now, given the nature of this franchise, we couldn't leave the ocean out of the conversation. With Moana being a friend of the ocean, it does a lot to help her on her adventures. But for most of this movie, Nalo's curse makes its powers null and void. Still, we get a pretty heart-touching scene towards the beginning, where Moana shares her friendship with the ocean with Samia, which makes her little sis visibly less anxious about her journey. The ocean even helps the two keep in touch throughout the story, like when it splashes Moana at the exact same moment Samia draws a heart in the water of the shore. Even far apart, family can stay together. Take it from Grandma Tala, who won't even let death keep her from staying connected to her granddaughter. When Moana is struggling with the decision to go search for Matafitu, Tala makes an appearance during a musical number to help encourage her to do the right thing. In the final act, she keeps her record clean by helping resurrect Moana with, okay, I don't know how it works, but it certainly did work. And as long as this Grand Manta Ray is around as a spirit, it's safe to say her granddaughter will be A-okay. And before we move on to the more, alive characters, let's talk about Tautai Vesa. Once known as the greatest voyager Motunui had to offer, he took on the difficult journey to find Matafitu and break the spiteful demigod Nalo's curse. So, considering the fact that the movie itself is about Moana taking on the difficult journey to find Matafitu and break the spiteful demigod Nalo's curse, yeah, you can connect the dots. Still, despite tragically dying at sea on the way to his destination, he is no less heroic than his eventual successor. He took a major risk for the good of his people and beyond, and gave up his life in the process. He also provided a guiding light to Moana to help her on the journey, though maybe a heads up about the whole gigantic clam thing would have been nice too. Okay, we've got a bit of an unconventional pick next, but Maui's tattoo deserves a mention. Giving the sidekick slash hero of your movie a moving tattoo that doubles as his conscience is just peak character design, honestly. Maui's tattoo may not be talkative, which, I don't think anyone expected it to be, right? But this inky man of action makes up for it by always pushing Maui to do the right thing, even if he has to resort to the occasional purple nurple to get his point across.
Okay, talk to the back.
And on that note, it's finally time to talk about Maui, The Rock's demigod alter ego. Maui's supernatural bestie returns in the sequel, and his role does not disappoint. For most of the film, he tries his best to keep Moana away from Matangi and Nalo for fear that they wouldn't survive going up against them.
This is serious!
Is something distracting you?
And later on, he gives her a much-needed pep talk. Pep sing, to motivate her to keep going.
You just gotta chee-hoo it.
Sure, being a demigod, Maui can be a bit insensitive to others sometimes, and while he's certainly a good guy, his ego definitely earns him the Pride Sinner medal. But in the end, Maui cares a lot about people and will do anything and everything in his power to protect them. During the final battle, he gets struck by multiple rays of lightning at once and almost sinks to the bottom of the ocean, nearly sacrificing both his godhood and his life in the process, but still wasting no time once he's conscious again to help revive Moana. Maui came back better than ever as both a hero and a friend, and for that he deserves some seriously high regard. Now it's time to get to everyone's favorite boat snack, sidekick, Heihei the brain-dead chicken. Heihei is still an absolute mystery. Is he a demigod disguised as a clumsy chicken? Is he just the absolute luckiest chicken in existence? Was the real Heihei the friends we made along the way? Who's to say? All we know is that Heihei is a chicken who isn't really intelligent enough to do much good or evil.
Boat snack!
But he's just a little guy living his life, and we're not going to fault him for that. We are going to give him the Darwin Sinner medal though, because, I actually don't think we need to explain this one. And the last few entries of the good section will go to Moana's new crew members, starting with Mani. He's a friend of Moana's from the village who spends his time making fan art of Maui and Moana, and the occasional self-insert, and teaching the kids of the village about their adventures. And when I say this guy is a fan of Maui, he's a major fan. While his obsession isn't romantic, at least I don't think it is, we're gonna give him the Lust Sinner medal for his obsession with Maui. When a guy with an ego as big as Maui's thinks you like him a bit too much, you might have a problem to address. But that problem isn't courage, at least. Even though he was almost eaten alive by a sea monster, it wasn't enough to deter his dedication to Moana's adventure, which shows he cares more about others than himself. Up next, we have the well-intentioned inventor, Lato. She's the type of person who's always working to improve her surroundings, which shows some willpower and commitment. Of course, some of these improvements are a bit rushed and dangerous, which can lead to her being one of those people who does both a lot of good and a lot of collateral damage.
I am unclear as to what you are doing.
Still, she's kind, positive, and does her best to help however she can, so we have to rank her here. And rounding out the good category, we have Squidward, Kale. As the crew's agriculture expert, he specializes in growing food, complaining, and that's basically all he does, at least for most of the film. But like many introverts, it turns out that he gets along with you great as long as you don't talk too much. Over the course of the movie, he becomes marginally less mean and more open to helping Moana and the gang, and is particularly friendly with the Kakamora and the ship's pets. And we saw that. We saw the scene where you threw away the ship's excess weight and refused to throw out Pua. So you have a conscience, and we respect you for it, because honestly, we would have never forgiven you. After the journey is over, he seems happy to work on the farm with his new animal buddies, hopefully hinting at a more peaceful, happy life for him going forward. But with that said, we've reached the end of our good section. While there aren't many, the Ocean Blue does have its share of shady characters, which leads us to the gray area. And first up, we have the infamous coconut pirates, the Kakamora. While these devilish little murder pirates tried to steal the heart of Te Fiti in the first movie, they made up for their violence in the second movie, or at least they explained it.
Kakamora?
It turns out that their home island was also lost in the wake of Nalo's curse, and all their actions throughout the movie were done to try and get it back. While trying to get home is a noble goal, and they do actually help Moana and her crew quite a bit in combat. They also tranquilized them and basically said, hey, either you help us and we help you, or your body stays jelly. Your choice. Desperation does make people do crazy things though. On that note, the final spot in our gray area goes to the film's secondary antagonist, Matangi. And man, Matangi, talk about an intimidating presence. A villain with influence over bats, able to capture Maui and hold him hostage so he won't interfere with her boss's plans. Matangi means business. It's nice to see a classic Disney villain. All the cool design, powers, screen presence, and she's a twist hero. Cool. Okay, cynicism aside, it turns out that despite literally kidnapping Maui and having him eat some kind of clam secretion as food, which, ew, she was good all along. She was only keeping Maui there so he could go with Moana and find Matafitu, which, yeah, I still have no clue what she was cooking with that plan, but in her defense, she has been trapped working for Nalo for 1,000 years. Anyone would be desperate for a change of scenery at that point, but with just how little we know about her thus far, we can't place her anywhere but the gray area. Though I will say, her song was easily the best one in the movie. With that, let's say get lost to the gray area and move into full-on villain territory. These characters are the bad and the evil. While it may be surprising to see him here, the shining silver medal of evil has to go to none other than Tamatoa. This guy was one of the many memorable aspects of the first movie, with an iconic musical number and an iconic flashy design. Tamatoa isn't so much as mentioned throughout the sequel though, which might make his inclusion confusing.
Pick an eye, babe. I can't concentrate on what I'm saying.
But imagine my surprise when I found out that there was, in fact, a post-credit scene where Tamatoa appeared, ready to team up with Nalo to settle a score with Moana and Maui. This crab is about to mean serious business, and we're looking forward to just how much his villainy will shine in the next installment. But the gold medal of evil has to go to Nalo, or as we like to call him, basically the reason everything bad happened in this movie. This dude was so petty that when he saw the people of the world getting along and being happy on the island of Matafitu, he saw no choice but to sink the island to the bottom of the ocean, covering it with an intense storm strong enough to threaten a demigod. We may not see Nalo on screen until the aforementioned post-credit scene, but the damage he did is still more than enough to justify his placement here. Nalo gets the Envy and Wrath Sinner medals for his disdain for human cooperation and his violent use of god powers, respectively. And to think that we still don't even know half of the stuff there is to know about him. Why is Matangi working with him? Why does he keep his employees trapped in a huge clan? Why did he literally prefer to sink an entire freaking island over letting people get along? Who's to say? All we know is that Nalo undoubtedly has the most selfish motive in the series, and almost certainly the highest kill count, for which we crown him with a very easy gold medal of evil.